What is up, guys? The Strong Boys 19 here. So it has been a few days when I had reviewed the next installment to the franchise, that was Halloween H2O 20 years later, and I actually still think this is a good Halloween film. This was the presentation of a different set of characters because we see Jamie Lee Curtis for the first time since Halloween 2 back in 1981 with a different cast and a different storyline. But out of all of the Halloween franchise so far, this one was a really enjoyable flick, in my opinion at least, than Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, and Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. So, we know how the ending went after Laurie Strode chopped off the head of Michael Myers, but unfortunately, 4 years later, this movie comes out. Halloween Resurrection. So, this movie was made in 2002 on the date of July 12th. The budget was $15 million and the box office was $37.6 million. It was directed by Rick Rosenthal, who actually directed the original Halloween 2 back in 1981. Paul Freeman did the production, the screenplay by Larry Brand and Sean Hood, and the story was again done by Larry Brand. It stars Jamie Lee Curtis for the last time up until we see her again in the 2018 film of Halloween. Now, it's not going to be a surprise if Jamie did not want to be in this film in the first place, but the filmmakers decided to keep persisting her to be in this film, so I can't really blame anything wrong with Jamie Lee, that her performance in this film was really, really limited and short, which is a big shame. It stars Busta Rhymes and others like Thomas Ian Nicholas, Ryan Merriman, Sean Patrick Thomas, etc. So, what do I think of this movie? As a follow-up to this movie 4 years later, without any shadow of a doubt, out of all of the original series, it is the bottom of the barrel worst. This is the worst of the franchise from Halloween, the original, to this film. It is one of these films that is so notoriously bad. It was no exception that a lot of the fans really disliked this movie that much, that it was known as the least liked. The film opens up, first of all, as a recap from the ending of Halloween H2O 20 years later. We've seen the part of Laurie Strode, by Jamie Lee Curtis, chopping off the head of Michael Myers, and that ending was one of the best endings to any Halloween film, in my opinion. Like the ending of Halloween 2, when Michael Myers was burnt to a crisp, and the ending of Halloween 4, with Jamie holding a pair of scissors after her gruesome murder at the end. But the beginning of this movie, it confesses that it was not Michael Myers, that his head was chopped off. Michael Myers somehow, without any rhyme or reason, decides to change clothes as one of the paramedics. So, it was not Michael all along that she decapitated, it was one of the heads from the paramedics. What a way to go to ruin that perfect ending from H2O. What a way to go. So when that happened, Laurie was going insane and she's been taken inside of Grace Anderson Sanitarium. And the nurses keep giving her multiple pills and medications that she keeps hiding from her mental health state. Well, what do you know? Michael Myers comes back in revenge. This means that Laurie wants to come back and fight Michael. And at the scene of the rooftop, there was a planned set of a trap to trap Michael. So when the both of them reached to the top, the trap worked to get Michael upside down whilst holding the knife. But some reason, Laurie is getting really worried that it was going to be one of the wrong people again. So to her consideration, she was going to take off the mask, but then the trap turns to a complete catastrophe. It breaks loose, then the knife stabs Laurie. Laurie then kisses Michael, says, "I'll see you in hell," and falls down to her demise. That was a horrifically bad option to kill off Laurie Strode way too early in this film. After like the first 10 or 15 minutes or so, right from the start. So what is the point of this film after that incident? What is this title, Resurrection? What is this resurrection got to do with this film? Nothing. There is nothing important about some kind of resurrection in this film. After that fuck up, we get to be introducing ourselves to Tyra Banks and Busta Rhymes, two hosts of their reality show of Dangertainment. They invited 6 students, 6 teenagers to take part, and most of this movie is totally different. Like Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, but this is different in my opinion, the laziest way possible. So after the beginning of the film, most of this movie is a presentation of 6 students having their own separate cameras to go inside the abandoned house in Haddonfield of Michael Myers' childhood home, with multiple surveillance cameras placed inside the house, and document their time inside that house. And Michael somehow knows about that, goes back to Haddonfield, goes in his revenge, in his killing spree, to kill off the rest of these younger people trespassing the house. That is the main plot for this movie. Now, don't get me wrong, there were other horror films that were made that popularized this found footage horror franchise, say like the Blair Witch Project, for example. You just can't really think of this movie being like a true successor to 20 years later. It's not the worst of being so confusing and nonsensical like Halloween 6, but it is the laziest. This is the laziest plot out of all of the other stories from the Halloween franchise. But it gets worse. The acting was so horrendous. Even a lot of the dialogue from these teenagers, really silly and totally generic. Busta Rhymes. Now, his acting in this film, yet, is so bad. He is arguably like the funniest in the worst ways possible. There were a few scenes of him being so stupid. Like he decides to prank as Michael Myers, and then he confronts Michael Myers in front of him without him realizing. And you just cannot forget the part of his character karate kicking Michael Myers. That is the funniest part of the film. But it is a film, you just can't help but laugh. Because this was taken so seriously, yet this is just a serious made attempt of trying to be a horror film when there's a lack of suspense, a lack of terror involved, that it's just so boring of a movie. The guy that played Michael Myers was Brad Loree, and I will have to say he tried his best. This was the only time that we get to see him as the legendary horror character, but, you know, I guess I would give him respect for doing what he tried to do. The violence in this film, the killings of the teenagers inside the house were not really that special. They were just lackluster and uninventive. So, as the film went on, I just really got so disconnected, even more than Halloween 6, that I do not care what was going on throughout the entire film. I do feel sorry for Jamie Lee Curtis that she had to be forced to be in this derivative, uninspired, and a stinker piece of garbage of this movie. There's nothing really good that I could say to try and save this movie for the better, because Halloween Resurrection is one of those sequels that was so out of reach, out of order, and uninspired. I just can't really think of anything else to say about this film. Other than, if you just want to check out a horror film just to take the piss, why it's so bad, then go right ahead with this film. But I can't blame you if you don't want to. It really is a shame that this was the last of the last in the original franchise, because if this movie was the last, 20 years later would have been perfect and so fitting to end the original franchise, but this movie ruined a lot of things. That's all I would like to say about Halloween Resurrection. 0.5 out of 5 stars. Why half a star? It is because that I understand that they tried to make this kind of concept and scenarios of a Halloween installment, especially with Rick Rosenthal's choice of directing this, but it did not work. Did not work without a trace of its history. Let me know what you think of this movie down in the comments below, and I will be back really soon to review the installments to the Halloween franchise by Rob Zombie, so stay tuned. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll keep you guys posted for more videos in the near future.